Hey guys, thanks for listening to Kinda Dating, the comedy dating podcast where influential guests and I break down the dating world and try to figure out why the do we all have commitment issues. Today's topic is nice guys. Let's do this. Hey friends, I'm Natasha. You're listening to Kinda Dating. We're going to get right into this episode because I really want you to hear it, and our friend is short on time. But also, if you do like what you hear, screenshot the episode, tag us, and tell us what you thought of it. Also, subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already, and I don't know, maybe tell a friend or two. That would be nice. And leave us a 5-star rating or review, guys. I so always appreciate the DMs you sent me, and all of that, but it only matters in the reviews of the podcast. That actually really helps us in the charts. So please do that if you haven't already. And follow us. We're on social media. We're at Kinda Dating on Instagram and TikTok. And I'm at Natasha Chandel on Instagram, Facebook, and Natasha.Chandel on TikTok. Okay, we have our friend back. He just, man, that last episode was so good. I can't. I mean, you are the author of this great new book called How to Be Loved. Also How to Be Loved. And you are an artist. So welcome back, Humble the Poet.
Thank you so much for having me.
Man, we already answered all the single or in a relationship question in the last episode. But this one I'm really excited to get into because we're talking about the nice guy. And it's something you also discuss in the book. But when I was reading about it, it was like you actually had this experience of your journey with this title of nice guy. We get asked about this a lot, and a lot of guys comment on it. Just saying they just really don't believe women are into nice guys. And I've really tried working hard to say that's just not true. But I would love to hear, and I know the listeners would love to hear your story around it. So were you ever the nice guy?
Yeah, I think what it is what we refer to as nice guy is not a nice guy. We refer to people who they don't hold their boundaries. They're doormats. They let people treat them ways that they don't want to be treated. They don't stand up for themselves. They don't, they put other people's needs before theirs, and they think it's selfish to put themselves first. And they think it's going to make someone like them, and really it just makes them an option for when somebody else needs some attention in between the whatever toxic situation they're actually in. So, I mean, I think we've all gone through that. And, I've definitely gone through it. And I think it's an important lesson to learn. I think it's a really important lesson to learn. You think you're doing everything right, which is not. And then you have expectations of other people, which isn't fair. So no one is entitled to anything just because they're a good person.
And when you went through that, did it change you? Because my experience is, look, the nice guy thing is the same for women. Women believe that guys always want like a bad girl. And I was in a relationship, my abusive relationship when I was many years ago. And his whole thing was, the girl that he was cheating on me with told me that he had said that I was too nice. And I remember I had just moved from Canada. So I was like, what? Is that an actual thing? And I moved to New York. So it really broke me. And I, at the time, decided like, fine, I'll go the other way. And then literally was like, cool, can't beat you, I'll join you. And then I became a hardcore. And honestly, I wasn't my best self. And I shut down and I closed all the doors. And that was from one experience of somebody telling me I was too nice. But you nailed it on the head right in the beginning, which is it wasn't that I was too nice. And the truth is, I really did not have boundaries. And so the work I had to do in therapy was to gain boundaries. So I wasn't just trying to please people and really just doing what I needed to do. But I know that one instance of somebody saying that to me broke me. So, like, did that change you? And do you think that's what's happening to so many guys? Is like one person said that to them, like, you're just too nice. And then they're like, this shit.
Yeah, I think the one challenging thing in this world of dating and relationships and interpersonal relationships is it's not a monolithic experience. Like my experiences with you will do very little to inform my experiences with the next woman, but I'll use my experiences with you to decide and think, well, she liked this, she didn't like this. That's how they all are. Then you hear this all the time when people talk about races. Oh, I can't date these types of girls or this, whatever. And it's like no two people are alike. And there's not a lot of patterns in people's behaviors. And it's like, you go through this idea of like the nice guy goes after a girl who doesn't pay attention to him. She's too busy paying attention to a guy who's not paying attention to her. And he's too busy paying attention to a girl that's not, it's just this endless thing because we adore those who ignore us and ignore those who adore us because we think we have to earn it, and if it comes easy, we don't think it's real or it's worthy, because we had to maybe fight for our parents' attention or we have to fight for somebody else's attention. And it's really about being aware of that. I mean, like, no, she's not gross for returning your text in a timely manner. He's not gross for paying attention to that. And I think there's an important thing there, but I think at the end of the day, what it evolved to with me, and it took a long time to get there, which is I can be nice, I can be kind, I can be sweet, I can be accommodating, but I have boundaries. And I had a conversation with somebody very recently where, they're a little bit far away and I tried to make an attempt to go see them and they kind of shut it down. And then later on, they said, well, why are you still here? I go, I'm here until I don't want to be here and then I won't be here. And then that woke them up. And then all of a sudden they were like, oh, wait, okay, let's figure out how to make this happen. I'm like, no, and now you're just operating out of guilt. You're not operating out of an enthusiasm to see me. You're operating out of a guilt because now you're afraid I'm going to lose you. I triggered something of yours. And I'm going to go, listen, I'm not telling you who to be. You can be whoever you want to be. I can have my own standards and I have to honor my own standards. That's what self-love is, keeping your promises to yourself. And, it is interesting whenever we go through breakups or go through situations that don't work out, we start to unlock this whole new version of ourselves. And then it's like, I'll show you. And, as if our ex is like constantly watching all our stuff. And it's probably a necessary part of all of it. But I think that the big thing is just realizing that our definition of nice isn't that. It's okay to show your teeth. It's okay to stand up for yourself because the alternative to that is resentment. And resentment is a very dark place. And there's no love that exists in that world of resentment. So it's better. You deny yourself love by trying to be liked. So it's better to put yourself in a situation where less people like you. So at least you can still channel some love for yourself.
And, there's this book that I read when I was kind of learning boundaries. And it was called Why Men Love. And the first page just defines like, hey, let's just start with what a bitch really means. And it's not what people would assume. It really is just being strong, but kind. And that shift made a big difference to me. And I do think when women conversely are into, the quote unquote bad boy. I know I've definitely gone through my phases, not of like bad boy, but definitely like wanting the attention of somebody who wasn't giving it to me, as almost like an egoic power dynamic of like, I'm going to get this guy and show myself that I can get this guy. Yeah. I actually just became obsessed with one guy, obsessed with just fucking him because he wouldn't fuck me. I didn't even like him.
Yeah.
But I was just like, why is this guy not trying to sleep with me? And it like made me want to do, and I never got it. And eventually I had to just like let it go. I was like, okay.
That was a conversation I was having with a married couple where we were discussing, there's a lot of references to the male ego, the fragile male ego. And then the question was of like, is there an equivalence to female ego. And then the wife's like, no. And then the husband's like, yeah, the moment she decides she's going to sleep with you and you don't, he goes, then you'll see the fragile female ego.
100%.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting dynamic. And I always think this, and again, this is anecdotal, so I don't want to be held scientifically, but as a public figure who has a lot of guy friends who are public figures, who have a lot of guy friends who are married, who have a lot of guy friends who are in relationships, a constant thread, and some of them behave and some of them don't. When it's just guys in the room, the conversation is there. The constant thread for the guys that do behave, unfortunately, it's not because I love her. It's because it's very evident I will be held accountable if I cross that line. And the ones that don't behave have already been caught.
Yeah.
And there was no consequences or accountability because of it.
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes the simple definition of what guys like bitches is really the bitch is someone who holds them accountable, or who's already making them feel like they ain't shit, even when accountability is not the thing. Like they're already not impressed. And it's this constantly, I need to win her, which isn't a healthy place to be.
No, it is not.
I always think about this when it's like, I would rather take like a friend like Lily to an expensive dinner, a non-romantic friend to an expensive dinner than a first date.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't feel bad spending a lot of money on my friends. I'd rather, take my parents on a vacation than trying to impress somebody, because you're setting a tone like, this is what I have to do forever for
Agree.
you. Versus here are friendships that already exist. These are relationships that already exist. They don't care. We can do Chipotle tomorrow, and next day we can do Nobu. My parents love me regardless. Let me put them on a first class flight. Like there's a healthierness to that than this idea that we have to constantly win somebody, because that constant chase is the only prize.
And I do think that it says a lot about what state we're in, right? Because oftentimes, like, guys will be like, "Oh, I'm chasing after somebody who is unavailable, and they're not like a bitch, or they think I'm too nice. They want a bad boy, so they're chasing after somebody who's unavailable." Over and over and over again, knowing that this person is not showing up for them the way they need. And they're putting it on the other person, like it's the girl that's a problem for not wanting to be with a nice guy, without looking internally and going, why are you attracted to somebody who is not giving you what you need? And that's part of like that commitment phobia I often talk about. Is I used to date people that were emotionally unavailable, that didn't treat me all that well. And it was really hard to go to therapy and figure out that, like, oh shit, I don't think it matters what they're doing. It matters that, like, why am I still keeping myself in this loop and attracted to those people? And when I broke that, I promise to God, I do not find those people attractive at all anymore. Like, if some dude even attempted to play a game, I had 2 exes reach out who used to be really shitty people. And I've been with my boyfriend for a long time. And old me before him would have easily texted them back and gotten back into drama. I literally looked at the message and I laughed. And I said, I'm not even going to reply. I was like, I don't even need to say, not interested, hope you're well. I don't need to engage, because I just don't. I think it's silly now.
Yeah.
I just find that behavior ridiculous. But it took me a long time to go, I don't think, because you can't change anybody else. You can only change yourself.
And I think that, as you're saying it, like what you're saying is the key moment is when you took accountability. And you took responsibility. And I think here's the thing. It is painfully addictive to be a victim. It's so addictive, because being a victim is the fast food version of connection. Nobody knows what I'm going through, so you feel sorry for yourself. So this nice guys finished last narrative is the same thing, which is like, oh, I did everything right and they don't appreciate me. No one gets me. Nice guys don't finish last. These girls only like the XYZs and blah, blah. And like, no. Things won't get better till you take ownership. Have some boundaries. If you text a girl 17 times, that's on you. Have boundaries. Be like, look, I texted you twice. I didn't hear from you. Good luck to you.
And be attracted to the girl that is probably texting you back the same way. Like you said, that there's that vicious
Yeah,
cycle, right? The
yeah.
person is chasing
But
somebody who's
recognize why you're
unavailable.
not. Even if you're not, let's say,
Mhm.
oh, she made it too easy. I'm not trying. Recognize why. You
Mhm.
know, I remember, you know, going to Amsterdam with a group of guys for a bachelor party, and then we get to the red light district, and it was super interesting because there was none of the single guys participated. And it was like,
Oh,
the
yeah,
fun
yeah,
is,
yeah. Oh my God, that's happened to me before in
yeah,
Vegas with
yeah,
girls. And
yeah,
I was one of the single ones, and I didn't do shit. And all the married, engaged ones were
yeah.
wild now.
Because they're not, and again, they're not even chasing what's happening. They're just chasing a new experience. They're just chasing an escape from the mundane of their life, which is, again, I'm not here to judge it. And when a single guy's like, why would I go and pay 50 euros? Like, I'm here for the chase. Like, the fun is winning the girl over. Getting sex by paying there's no fun in that, but it definitely makes sense for somebody in a situation, because what you're paying for is to make sure this doesn't follow you home. And it's a really interesting thing where it's taking that ownership of like, wait a minute, this is healthy. Why don't I want this? Oh, because I'm not used to this. Like, again, I recognize that. Like, I have a hyper, as many of us brown people do, like a hypercritical mom, and then all of a sudden you start to get attracted to girls that don't think you that aren't impressed by your stuff. So it's like, if I go home, and I'm a public figure and I do some cool ass shit and I hang out with cool ass people, like, and then people are like, oh my God, that's so cool. I might think that's gross versus being in Hollywood where that's everybody's everyday. And like, oh, you did an Apple commercial? That reminds me of when I did my Starbucks commercial. And you're like, oh, they're not impressed by that. They must be cool. And it's like, no, they're just in the same industry as you. They do the same things that you do. They walk the same red carpets. They go to the same parties. They do all that stuff. And it's really about that self-awareness that comes from being like, yo, why do I think one thing is good and one thing is bad? And it's not because these are my individual preferences. A lot of this stuff was signaled and taught to me.
Mhm.
Like, if I was, I have a friend who's very wealthy who eats a lot of mac and cheese because they grew up in a single family house where they had mac and cheese every day. Now they can afford a private chef, but they're still eating mac and cheese because it's a comfort, nostalgia food. It's the same thing with our preferences in our relationships. They become comfort and nostalgia. That doesn't make them good for us. That just makes them familiar. And it's about breaking out that pattern. And that's why therapy is so important, because you have this person who has no stake in the outcome, paying attention to you. They know what they're talking about, and they'll get you out of this black and white thinking and help you see that there's a lot of gray in between to get yourself in a better situation.
Yeah, and something you say in the book about that, about breaking that habit and changing your perspective around being the nice guy is you say, not everyone is going to take advantage of you for being vulnerable. And the
Yeah.
ones who do are saying more about themselves.
Yeah. Exactly. We're afraid of being vulnerable because we don't want to be judged. If somebody judges us, they're telling us their story, not ours. And we judge because we're insecure.
Hmm.
So these are most of the time when you're vulnerable with somebody. And I'm not saying give them your deepest, darkest secrets the first day you meet them, but there's light versions of vulnerability that you can do when you first meet somebody. If I can meet a complete stranger today and tell them about how it broke my heart to lose my first dog, that's not something that's going to scare a stranger away. And that invites them to be vulnerable with me. And now we have a meaningful connection versus something else. So this idea that we have to wear all these masks and put on this facade when we first meet somebody, it's not necessary. You can actually be yourself. You can share it, and you just have to recognize, but who you are is still your responsibility. Don't overcompensate and be like, oh, here are all my triggers, so now tiptoe around them. It's like, no, your triggers are still your responsibility. Telling me your triggers is fine. And as I develop a deeper relationship with you, then I'll care to work with them and help you on that. But if I've just met you, it's not my responsibility or my priority to work around that. And I think it's just, we exist where this pendulum is swinging so far each way. And we just got to realize there's a lot of nuance and context in between that. And it's okay to have a 10 out of, a 3 out of 10 story that is vulnerable. It doesn't have to be a 10 out of 10 story, but you're starting that journey with somebody, and it's okay if they don't respond the way you. That's cool. Like, they're showing you who they are, and move on.
And I think, it's so important to break this narrative that nice guys finish last because when is the end that we're looking at? That is very
Mm.
important because a lot of times we're looking at it from like our 20s and we're seeing people in our 20s, maybe early 30s. Like, you're like, oh, all girls want bad boys. Have you ever seen somebody at 80 end up with a bad guy and be
40? Have you
happy?
seen anybody at 40?
Yeah, exactly. And be happy. Be happy is key. Because some people are in shitty relationships with those bad guys and none of them are happy. So the happiness factor is what's key. And nobody is going out trying to find the person that's going to ruin their life, because those hurt people hurt people. And all
Yeah.
those people who are unable to give themselves is because they're probably hurting too. And so they're just going to make sure that you're hurt. And that's not that peaceful experience that you were talking about in the last episode of love is kind of peace, right? It's not
Yeah, it's
full of
peace.
drama.
Yeah, it doesn't. And I mean, and if there's going to be challenges and drama, like, voluntarily put yourself into that for the sake of growth. The same way you voluntarily have an uncomfortable day at the gym. You voluntarily do it to make yourself stronger, and you can do that in your relationships. That's by voluntarily initiating conversations that need to happen, but doing it after everyone's had a good night's sleep and a belly full of food, not being reactive, being responsive. And as I said, I think the quickest way for people to feel connected is through, as I said, self-pity. And it's like no one gets that. And then again, like, you can build a whole club of nice guys who feel like they finished last and women don't respect them and they make up all this stuff. But at the end of the day, like, that's just not the case. And it's when you taking accountability and responsibility doesn't mean taking blame. It's just understanding where your power is in this situation. If I'm driving my car and somebody rear ends me, it wasn't my fault. But still my responsibility to get the insurance done, get the car fixed, do all of that stuff. It's the same thing here. If somebody cheats on me, it may not have been my fault, but it's my responsibility to heal past that, move past that, address it, do what I have to do. And when I make it my responsibility, that's where I find my power. Because when we're powerless, we get back into the world of resentment. And that's a very dark place to be. You don't want to be in a place of resentment ever. It's better to be unlikable than to be resentful of people because you want them to like you.
I could not have said that better myself. That was great. I feel like that is a really, really good place to wrap this episode. Humble, thank you so much for taking time out and being on the podcast again. I know everybody loved you the first time. I know they're going to love these episodes. So thanks again.
Thank you so much for having me.
And again, how can everybody find you and your book?
Again, the book is available everywhere books are sold, Amazon, everywhere else. If you can't find the book, humblethepoet.com/love. And you can find me on all the social medias at Humble the Poet.
And guys, make sure you get How to Be Loved and follow Humble. All of his stuff and links will be in the show notes of this episode. So make sure you check that out. We're also on social media. We're at Kinda Dating across the board. I'm at Natasha Chandale on Instagram, Facebook, and Natasha.Chandale on TikTok. Thank you so much, guys, for downloading this episode. If you like something you heard, screenshot the episode and tag us on social media. And finally, I know it seems tough out there, but just try. Till next time. I hope you guys enjoyed that video and check out our next one. Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe to this channel for more amazing dating, love, and relationship advice from me and so many expert guests. Follow us on socials. We're at Kinda Dating across the board. I'm Natasha Chandale, so you can find me too if you like. And join our newsletter on www.kindadating.com for lots of exclusives. See you soon.